All right, so today we're going to talk about feelings. We're talking about FE and FI. Everyone has one or the other, so what's the difference? Well, one is personal and the other is impersonal. FI is processing values for self, selfish values. Its energy is going deep and inward, and FE is processing the spectrum of values, shallow values. Its energy is broad and outward. So quick disclaimer here. The word feelings that Jung chose to delineate the FI and FE functions can be a little bit misleading. It doesn't mean that users with inferior feeling functions don't have feelings or emotions. It means that their emotions aren't as connected to their values by default. For TE and TI dominant users, emotions are going to be more correlated and invested with logic and thinking. However, you're going to tend to see more feelings and emotional expression with FE and FIs because as humans, our value systems are intimately related to our feelings and emotions. Therefore, your thinkers and logicians will typically not be quite as in touch with their emotions. With that said, to understand and recognize FE and FI, it's really helpful to break down the parts. FE is prioritizing two things, values and others. FI is prioritizing values and self. Combined, we get our functions, but to recognize these types in the wild, it's helpful to break them down because they can often feel the same, no pun intended. First, find out if somebody prioritizes self or others. Then, if you see them communicating feelings, values, etc., and taking responsibility for them, you can see the function. Last week in my video, which personality type is the most shallow, I talked about how extroverted functions are like a shallow, broad frequency, while the introverted ones are deep and even pointed with multiple layers. The reason seeing the functions as frequencies is helpful is because the functions create etiquettes that we project on the world. Those etiquettes influence how we communicate and how we expect others to communicate. So, if you're an FE emitting a broad frequency of collective tribe values, you're going to typically fly right over the head of an FI who is emitting a tight frequency of personal values. Or maybe you're going to be too shallow. Maybe that's a bad analogy. But if you're an FI emitting your frequency of complete authenticity, it can be very confusing to someone who emits a frequency of shared values and probably come across as selfish to them. All of our functions are simply detailed descriptions of our ego structures and therefore intimately connected to our nervous systems. And when we encounter functions in the wild different than our own, it will often trigger our survival reflexes to self-protect in different ways. So what I really want to discuss in this episode is the expression of these two functions and how they can influence human interactions and relationships. FE users and FI users have completely different experiences that they project onto the world and therefore different resulting expectations. Because FI is processing values on its own, it does seem to navigate emotional issues in a much more private fashion. This is because the internal emotions are connected to the very personal value system. FI is very comfortable resolving emotions on its own, and therefore it expects others to do the same. Since the FI is obligated to authentically operate in alignment with its values, the energy of the FI tends to be much more pointed in its emotional expression. At the same time, these emotional expressions tend to be brief, as this pointed expression releases and resolves the inner state more quickly. This is the other reason that the frequency analogy is helpful. The pointed expression of FI can be overwhelming to an FE user. This is because even though the FE is also a feeler, the FE doesn't understand the frequency. The great part about the quick release and resolve of the FI is that it can move quickly through emotions and feelings. Despite this great feature, FEs can be quite triggered along the way, dismissing the value of FI's incredible ability for efficient personal processing of feelings and emotional states, again, connected to their value systems. Since FE is processing collective values, it anticipates resolving any issues related to feelings and emotions collectively. Because the FE is obligated to harmonize collective values, its energy is much more broad, gentle, and typically bubbly. Resolving emotional states tends to be much more involved because FE is resistant to trying to resolve emotional states alone. Typically, the FE can't be resolved emotionally unless those around them are in a resolved state as well, since the FE will be drawn to the energy of the environment. So in any sort of conflict that originates with another person, the FE will want to talk out the emotions before they move forward. It's not that the FI wouldn't want to talk, it's just that the FI isn't expecting the other individual to participate in the resolution of the feeling state. FI will do that on its own. FE will wait to do it collectively. So when FI and FE get together in any sort of close friendship or intimate relationship, this frequency mismatch can be quite confusing. The FI will express and move through emotions in a quick and pointed fashion, doing so on their own typically, while the FE will expect the other to work with them collectively. In this space, both individuals can feel resistance. And it's important to notice that both formats for value processing are not wrong, they're simply different. In later videos, I plan to talk about therapy and psychology and how it often doesn't consider the frequencies of FE and FI and the different needs of these individuals based on their functions. But for now, hopefully this is a helpful framework to start to differentiate between the two, FI and FE, and to help you understand what they're doing and how that expresses itself. Obviously, a lot more could be said, but this is a good start. Thanks for watching, and now you know which one's better.
It's fun to stay at the YMCA. It's fun to stay at the YMCA. Do you really